My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. And today is Saturday. Today is Saturday, January 7th, 2023. And we are at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Delray Beach. And sir, what is your name?
Bernard J. Pecaro.
Okay. And what branch of the service did you serve in?
Navy.
United States Navy. And what year did you go into the service?
1987.
Mm-hmm. What were you doing prior to going into the military?
I was an Episcopal priest.
Oh, okay. And how old were you when you decided to do that, Father?
Oh, about 33.
What year was that?
1987.
Uh-huh. Okay. And what were you doing prior to becoming an ordained
Priest?
priest?
I was going to college and working jobs to get through college before seminary.
Where?
Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Oh, where were you born?
Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Okay. Okay. All right. Nice. Very nice. Okay. So tell me, high school, college,
Yes.
prior to the military?
Yes.
Where was high school?
Graduated Piper High School in Sunrise, 1973.
Okay.
Went to Nova University in Broward County, graduated 1978.
Right.
Went to Nashotah House Episcopal Seminary in Wisconsin, where I graduated 1984.
I'm curious as to why you chose Wisconsin.
The seminary was basically the theology that my rector wanted me to go.
And you just told me, but yeah, that was your major?
That was my Master Divinity.
Okay.
Seminary.
What did you major in? What was your bachelor's in?
My bachelor's was community service
Ah, okay.
at Nova.
At Nova University.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Okay. They have a pretty good community service program there, don't they?
Well, it's been a long time. I don't know what's there anymore.
Uh-huh. Well, at that time?
It was fledgling. It was a fledgling school at the time. Actually, I went from Broward Community College to there, which was across the street.
Right.
And they had 3 buildings at the time. You go there now, you wouldn't recognize it. It's grown up since then.
Totally get that. Totally get that. Okay, so you became an ordained minister, and then what prompted you to enter the military?
Well, my age prevented me from entering into Vietnam. I graduated in 73 and Vietnam was just beginning to kind of draw down. And although I had a draft number, I was not drafted. I was married young, and so that took me out of the opportunity to be drafted into the service or even enlisted. But I felt a passion for the military I had all my life, and when we bombed Gaddafi's home back in the day, I felt a need to somehow support our country because I thought we were going to go to war. And so I talked to my bishop, Calvin Schofield, who just retired as a Navy chaplain, 06, from the Navy. And before I knew it, I was raising my right hand before a very pregnant Lieutenant Buddha, taking the oath of office. And 27 years later, I never regretted the opportunity to serve the Navy.
So you retired after 27 years?
27 years.
Wow, fantastic.
Retired.
Okay, so...
Reserve, all reserve though.
All reserve?
All reserve.
Okay. Did you deploy at all?
I was deployed during Desert Storm.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So, where was basic training?
We went to, chaplains are commissioned directly into the military, and then we go to a school. My school was in Newport, Rhode Island for chaplains, where I went to my basic training, so to speak.
In Newport, okay. And how long was basic training?
It was a 6-week course where I did it in 2 terms, one summer after another, so I took my vacation time to go to school in Newport.
Okay, so do me a favor and sort of walk me through that. Mm-hmm. You said 2 weeks?
Well, it's actually, I think it was a 6-week program where you could break it up in 2 summers.
Ah.
You would be commissioned, I was commissioned as a JG, frocked to lieutenant straight away in my first school. Came home after my first school, and then went back the next summer to finish up. And then after that, we went to Marine Corps Indoc.
What is the JG?
Junior grade, lieutenant junior grade.
Gotcha. And you said Marine what?
The Navy chaplain services the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard, because they're all under the Department of Navy during war. And so I had each of those branches to serve.
Gotcha. Okay. Throughout your basic training, that was 2 summers?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were there any fatalities? Anybody get injured? Were you ever hurt?
Not among the chaplain corps, no.
Okay. All right. How large was the chaplain corps? How many individuals?
In my class?
Yes, sir.
I say approximately 30 at the time.
Okay. And I'm curious, as you went from one summer to the next, maintaining the same, were the same individuals with you?
No.
Not at all?
Some, not all, a few.
Okay.
Because most stayed on for the whole course.
Right.
Some went active, some went reserve.
Okay.
The guys who went active went away, but I always wanted to stay reserve because I wanted to stay in the parish ministry.
Okay. All right. So upon graduation the following year, so where was your duty base?
We don't have duty bases so much, we have units. I was assigned to a MEFREL, which is a Marine Expeditionary Force Religious with the Marine Corps. So I drilled first in Orlando and then here in West Palm Beach. But after I graduated the chaplain training program, I went to Marine Corps Indoc for a summer time to train up with the Marine Corps at Lejeune. Okay,
so the first part was how long?
Well, I did that one. I think it was a 2-week training course.
Okay.
Full.
And the second part after graduation, I believe?
After graduation, I stayed with my Marine Corps chaplains unit.
Where?
In Orlando.
Okay. And so that's the unit that you were attached to?
Yes.
Permanently, so to speak?
No, I stayed there. That unit was recalled to Desert Storm. Some of us went to Lejeune, others went to the desert. A couple of them did, but I remained at Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune during the 3 to 4 months of deployment.
Okay. When you say the desert, you mean the Middle East?
Right.
And how many times did you go to the Middle East?
I never went to the Middle East.
You never went?
No.
Okay. So where did you deploy to?
Lejeune.
Lejeune. Where is that?
It's in North Carolina, outside Jacksonville.
Camp Lejeune.
Camp Lejeune.
And that's where you did your 2 weeks out of the year and weekends?
Well, yes. When I did my annual training, which you see reservists do once a month, 2 days, and then 12 days or 2 weeks during the summer.
Right.
So when I was with the Marine Corps component, I would drill at Lejeune. But once I left the Marine Corps, went to the Navy side of the house, then I would drill at Autech, Andros Island. So I drilled with the various branches of the service, Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard. Okay, and so, all right, so you said you drilled with those 3 different units. Departments of defense, yeah. Okay, gotcha. So, and the first one was which one? Well, I'm always a Navy officer. Right. So my first group that I drilled with and supported were Marines. Okay. The second group was Coast Guard. And then the Navy after that in Hawaii. Okay. So with the Marines, where did you travel to? Well, with the Marines, it was mostly covered off and on most of my career. So I was in Orlando. I was also in Knoxville, Tennessee, as the OIC of a Marine Corps chaplain unit. And then I was in Atlanta, Georgia, as the OIC of the chaplains there. Okay. And so that was the Marines? That's the Marines. And the Coast Guard? The Coast Guard, here in District 7, which covers all of Florida, some up in the East Coast, and to our south in the islands. I served... What islands? The Bahamas, all the Caribbean islands. So that's District 7. Right. That's this district I was assigned to. In the Navy Reserve Chaplain Corps, there are 12 chaplains selected to serve that national billet to support Coast Guard assets.
Right.
Okay, I was one selected of that 12 to serve District 7.
Okay. All right.
And so I served and I traveled all around the region to support small boat stations, the command, the air station down here in Opelika. And I was recalled to be the command chaplain of District 7 on a temporary basis for 3 months when they had a gap of active duty chaplains to fill that billet. So I served on active duty with the Coast Guard for 3 months here in D7.
Okay. So what was that? Okay. So when you went on, what was the third one to Hawaii?
That was a Navy support.
Navy support.
Yes. After my time with the Coast Guard,
Mm-hmm.
I was asked to go to, I put in and was requested to go to Pearl Harbor to be the deputy chaplain to Reserve Affairs for Region Hawaii.
Okay. And what did your duties consist of in Hawaii, by the way?
Well, my support was the base chapel, the sub base, and the Marine Corps station there in Oahu. And I would go out there 3 times a year for 3 years. Mm-hmm. And when I did my weekends, if you will, we joined them together. It would be a 2-week period of time. And then I would also fly out for my annual training. So I went out to Hawaii 3 times a year in a 3-year period.
That must have hurt. So
Best experience of my life.
well, okay.
Love it.
So yeah, I'd like to ask you to go through all 3 and do what you just did literally, which is explain what your role was, how was the tour, and what did it consist of, your responsibilities.
Okay, well I can start with when I was Lieutenant JG Lieutenant. I was working again with the Naval, Marine Expeditionary Force Religious, out of Orlando, and that's when I was recalled to Desert Storm with my unit and served there at Lejeune for about 3 to 4 months. Came back and that billet ended, and then I went to work with AUTEC, Andros Island, as the base chapel for reserves affair there. They have a chapel there called Chapel Glai, or Glai Chapel, which was named after a Vietnam veteran killed there in Vietnam. And so I supported that AUTEC unit for 3 years. I went out there once a month, and again for my annual training for 12 days in the summer. After that 3-year billet was over, I became the OIC of another MEFREL in Knoxville for 2 years. And after that billet was filled and completed, again, that billet supported the Camp Lejeune area. And after that was over, then I was recalled back to, I believe I supported the Coast Guard at that point, here in District 7. Where I did many things around the district, one of which when I was on active duty, supporting the active side, we had a coastie, or actually 2 coasties, die out in Alaska via drowning from their ship. And we did the service here for one of those persons, and that was a major event for us here in D7. Mm-hmm. After the Coast Guard, then I was assigned to be the OIC of the Marine Corps unit in Atlanta, where I served for approximately 2 years before I injured myself in a car accident and was unable to serve. And once I had to resign that post, then I went to what we call VTU, volunteer training, where you drill but you don't get paid for it, which was fine. And what I did then was I supported all the Coast Guard stations that they wanted me to visit, and then also supported the Marine Corps recruiting stations in our area. Wow. On my own dime. Because as a ministry, it was an extension of my Episcopal priesthood, and I enjoyed supporting the troops. And then I retired about 5 years ago.
Okay, fantastic. Any other places that you traveled over the 27-year period while on duty that you haven't already mentioned?
Went to Calgary, Canada for some training with the Coast Guard for suicide prevention, which was a very important and necessary thing to do. Other than that, other than the stations here and the other named areas, no.
Okay. Okay. How was the food?
Coast Guard food was great. Well, out in the field with the Marines, we ate MREs, so that wasn't so hot, but it was good. We suffered along with the Marines in the field, which was fun, and it was all good. Yeah, it's all good.
Okay. Okay. I heard you say that you're married?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm curious, going back, whenever you went on maneuvers, whenever you did your weekends, whenever you did your 2 weeks, did you ever have any problems staying in touch with your family overall?
Overall, no. As a matter of fact, when I was in Hawaii, I called my wife from on top of the mountain, and it was a few hour difference, but I think I may have woken them. But it was such an experience being there, and so I called my family and said hello. So no, we had there's a few periods of time that I couldn't because I was doing stuff, but yeah.
But overall, it was.
And back in the day, we didn't have cell phones, so.
Gotcha.
As well as we do today. So.
Where were places over that same interval of time? And of course, I realize you were in reserve. Where did you go for your, I'll just call it regular R&R outside of the military on vacation?
R&R? Well, we've gone to various places around.
How long have you been married?
29 years now.
Oh, that was okay.
29.
But that was after the military you got married?
No.
After you entered, or was it before?
It was, no, I was a lieutenant when I got married to my wife Sylvia.
Okay, so that was close to the beginning.
Close to the beginning.
So she's been with you
all that time.
Congratulations.
Very, very supportive.
Absolutely, apparently.
Yeah.
So where have you all traveled?
Since?
As a couple.
As a couple without the military?
No, well, I mean during that time period.
During the time
Yeah.
period. Well, the 3-year billet out at Autech in Andros, she came, and my family came, my kids, my mother-in-law and father-in-law came out to Autech. We stayed some time at Autech there.
What is Autech?
It's a Navy base there on Andros Island.
Okay.
And the tongue of the Oda, the Toto is there, where they test subs and other types of things. It's a technical base. And they have a chapel, so I was assigned.
Okay.
Actually, I got the billet. It was an active duty billet. And I was told by my commanding officer, he said, if you can open that to a reserve billet, I'll give it to you. So I opened it up. It was like impossible because I was working with DC. So eventually we opened it. I got the billet, and I was able to go there for 3 years.
Okay.
Which was cool. It's really beautiful. And so they came out there. And then again, my 3rd year when I was out in Hawaii, they came to Hawaii.
Okay. So was that the extent of
of their visitations with me?
All right, and your travel. Have you any place so any other places that you have visited inside, outside the service before, after, and in between?
Well,
that you haven't already mentioned.
When I was with the Coast Guard, and after the funeral that we had for the petty officer Duque, I had the blessing of getting into one of the Coast Guard jets, and they took me out to Bahamas, and then to Puerto Rico, then down to Gitmo on a run, and so that was pretty exciting to be able to go to those places with the Coast Guard. And then toward the end of my time with the Coast Guard, I got a helo ride from the air station here in Opelika to fly over my children's school. And we hovered for a while as the school came out to watch, and that was fun. Wow. Basically, let me see, what other places that I go? If it's in military, that's about the places I visited. Out of military, my family and I have done Orlando, Disney World, and Anaheim, and things like that.
How far into the Caribbean have you traveled?
Puerto Rico.
Okay. All right.
That's as far east as I've gone.
Gotcha.
And then South Cuba.
Okay. Over your military career, have you had the unfortunate experience of witnessing casualties?
Yes.
And I know you mentioned a few.
Yes. Civilian with the Coast Guard mostly. Because the Coast Guard, as you know, responds to people who are injured. And
Oh.
yes, there was one occasion where I was stationed in Fort Lauderdale that a boy was swimming or snorkeling just south of the base of the center there, and a boat ran over him, cut off his shoulder.
Oh, God.
And he was brought back to the station, and his family arrived at that time. Petty Officer Duque was killed, as I said, in Alaska off of a Coast Guard cutter in a diving exercise with a couple of other of his personnel, and he drowned, as well as did another officer drowned. And I was responsible for Duque, so I administered to the family during that time, which was very, very difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then assisted with the organization and the liturgy of the service itself.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a tough one. Other incidences, I did a casualty assistance call here in Boynton Beach for a family whose son was a Navy pilot killed off the shores of Florida on a flying thing that he was doing. His plane crashed into the sea. So I did that casualty call. And other than that, I can't think of anything that comes to mind regarding military deaths that I was involved with.
Okay. Besides what you've already mentioned again, give me, if you don't mind, 2 more memorable experiences out of your military career that stand out still.
Well, the funeral for Petty Officer Duque, second class,
Mm-hmm.
was very, very memorable. And because it involved my ability to use my pastoral skills to minister to the mother and the father and the daughter, the sister remaining. And that was very, very powerful. And working with all the units of the Coast Guard, District 7, to make that happen was quite a feat. And then the Coast Guard performed admirably. I guess the other second event was the first time I stepped off the aircraft in Oahu and in Hawaii, and stepped off into the tarmac and experienced the beauty, the serenity of what Hawaii can offer. And my time in Hawaii, just experiencing that beautiful place and the ministry offered there. It's pretty incredible.
Very nice. Citations, medals.
Yeah, I was trying to recall those. I have a presidential unit commendation for that was given to the Coast Guard when we had a hurricane hit Louisiana, and I did not respond to that in that area. The others are the FMF ribbon. I really can't think, quite honestly. I had a number of them.
Okay.
But I can't recall exactly what they are at this time.
Gotcha. By the way, have you maintained any of your friendships, interactions, friends that you made over that period of time? Have you maintained them today?
Yes, the MEFREL 108, which was my first Reserve Marine Corps unit, that was a clergy unit. We're still, several of us still friends, contact with each other.
Nice. Do you feel like you had all the supplies that you needed through your military career?
As a chaplain, I think so. Of all the places I've been at and the units I've worked with, yeah, for the most part. If not, we just faked it.
I'm curious. What rank were you when you separated, by the way?
Commander.
Okay.
05.
Is it 05? What is that equivalent to?
Lieutenant Colonel
Lieutenant Colonel
in the Air Force.
Okay. Oh, okay. Very nice. Do you have any disabilities that you acquired?
Not physical disabilities, no.
Okay. Just a few more questions. I wanted to ask you. So have you had the opportunity to work with a lot of youth over your career?
In the military?
Inside, outside?
Yes, oh yes, well, the church particularly, yes.
Right.
Yeah, oh yeah,
So-
lots.
Regarding the military and also, the world as it is today, what advice would you have going forward as far as young people are concerned, or people, or your family members included also, as a matter of fact?
Not to give a trite answer, which it could seem to be, but to love them, to accept them, to guide them, to listen to them. And as a parent as well as one who works with children, that's essential.
How about regarding the military, as far as, young people looking for a future?
Yeah, I've not worked much with the youth in the military other than Hawaii. That was very, limited.
What I meant was as far as a career.
Oh, for them going into the
Yeah.
military? Oh, that, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if they feel so called to do that, I've loved the military. I never wanted to be a military chaplain. When I was in seminary, I ran from the recruiters because I thought it was kind of beneath the priesthood. And but when I decided to go and I joined, there was such a camaraderie, such an ecumenism of faith groups coming together, and a broad ministry that I could offer, which was a great extension of my ministry as a priest. And so, yeah, I would encourage anyone to go into the military if so called, because it's a great life. It gives a person structure. And I think a lot of our youth today should be going into the military just because they need that structure and purpose. And I'm working on my granddaughter to join the Air Force. So.
Okay. All right. And exactly when did you separate? You told me, I think you mentioned it.
I believe it was October of October of 2017.
Okay. Have you used your GI Bill for anything?
No.
I mean, you had your education when you went in.
Yeah.
So purchase a home or medical?
And that's one of the things I have failed myself on, is getting together with the military to get the benefits that I should or perhaps might get.
Okay. All right. All right. So, and we know what you've done after the military. Here you are at the church, still practicing your faith.
Right. I
And
always served the parish,
Mhm.
Even as a military chaplain.
okay, just a few more questions. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
To the degree that I think that what the military does is essentially important, and a ministry of a chaplain within the military is essential. And I believe that with all my heart. It's tough when you're working with Marines and other sailors that they want to be the macho type. But there's that saying: there's no atheists in a foxhole, and everyone is human. And the chaplain is there to hear and to guide and to counsel. To be that spiritual religious support. And I think that's important, because in my opinion, we're all spiritual beings, and God is within each of us, and that expression needs to be met.
Okay.
And the chaplain can help do that.
Close to the last question. How did your service and experiences affect your life?
Bettered it. It really has. It's strengthened me. It's broadened me. Most folks won't understand this, but I was a high church Anglo-Catholic Episcopalian, meaning smokes, bells, worship, all that stuff.
Right.
Very myopic in my view of religion. And the Lord just opened me up when I joined the military to see that there are so many expressions of faith out there, and to be open to those faith expressions and to receive them and to assist them, which is basically the mission of the chaplain, is to serve all, but not at the cost or the expense of your own faith. So I have found it to be very, very maturing for me as a Navy chaplain over these years.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
You asked me about one of the pastoral concerns that were rather important in my ministry as a chaplain. And I forgot to add the Chalk airline crash off of Palm Beach back in 2005, which I responded to. And that's the story I would like to share, if I may.
Carry on.
Okay. There is another very deep and moving pastoral experience I had serving the United States Coast Guard here in District 7. And that was back on December 19th, 2005. I was leaving my office, my parish office in Pompano Beach, going home around 5 o'clock or so. And I get a call from the district chaplain asking me to come down to Station Miami Beach. And because the Chalk airline had crashed just off the shores of Miami Beach, and he was asking that I come and support the casualty assistance call talks with the troops, and to do a just basically support the coasties that were bringing the bodies back to the station. And I said I would be glad to do that. And I drove down 95, and once I got to Station Miami Beach, there was a lot of chaos with news reporters. And I eventually made my way in past the gates and into the base, and I parked my car. And as I was walking to the command center, I passed what was normally a garage, and I saw yellow tape cordoning off the garage from what was in there for those who were onlookers. And as I went to the tape and looked inside, I saw numerous rows of bags with bodies in them. And it was very dark and sullen. There was one individual in there taking notes. I assumed he was taking identification. And that scene moved me so deeply that I chose to walk in past the yellow crime tapes and stand in the midst of the dead persons there. And I offered a prayer. And it was quite a very holy moment in prayer amidst those who had died. And the person who was in there saw that I was standing there, and he asked what I was doing. And I said, well, I am a Navy chaplain, and I am praying with these persons. And he said, well, you cannot be here. It's a crime scene. So I acknowledged that, and I walked out and into the command center, where I assisted in the debriefings of the coasties who had retrieved the bodies from the airline and brought them back to the station. And after that was over, I went home with a heart very sullen, as you could imagine. Several weeks later, I was doing something within my diocese with the Daughters of the King. I was the spiritual directors for the Daughters at the time, and I was at a conference, and I shared the story that I just shared with you. And during that, I noticed that someone in the back, an older woman, was visibly shaken by my story. And I was asked after my talk to come back and speak with her, which I did. And she said, Father Bernie, thank you for being there, because I had members of my family on that airline, and it's nice to know that your prayers have given them their souls comfort, as well as me today. So that was the big story of pastoral care and concern, and I just wanted to be able to share that with you. Okay, Carlton.
Okay, and I just want to, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, just want to make sure. This was back in 2005, correct?
Yes, sir. That date was December 19th, 2005. It was Chalk Ocean Airways Flight 101.
And where were you located?
I was in Pompano Beach at my parish at the time.
Okay, and where did this event actually, oh, you stationed Miami Beach?
Yeah, they took off from Miami Airport. They were heading to the Bahamas.
Uh-huh.
And something happened to the wing or something, and it just went down into the sea, just off the shore.
Okay, and could you give me a little better description of exactly where Station Miami Beach is located?
Station Miami Beach is on the island in Miami Beach. It's a finger island, the causeway, Rickenbacker Causeway.
Okay.
I believe it is Rickenbacker Causeway, which juts out toward the island of Miami Beach. It's a
Gotcha.
causeway, yeah.
Okay. All right, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
There is one more story, if I might, another pastoral story.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Petty Officer Stephen Duque. Let me just write this down. Okay, I'll start the story. A number of years ago, the District 7 Coast Guard was in need of a command chaplain to fill an active billet. A gap was created because there weren't enough active duty chaplains. And so I was asked to be recalled to active duty as the command chaplain for District 7 for a 3-month period. And my parish allowed me to do this, and I did it joyfully. And as I was performing my duties, a call came in from the XO of the sector saying that 2 deaths had happened off of the Alaskan coast from a Coast Guard cutter. There were 2 divers actually in the water, and both had drowned. There was a 3rd diver that was in the water, and when she noticed that her equipment was malfunctioning, she went back to the surface. But the 2 others, Lieutenant Duque and the lieutenant, checked that would be Petty Officer 2nd Class Duque, was in the water with his lieutenant and was unable to escape, and both drowned. Lieutenant Duque's family, his mother and sister, lived in Miami, and I was asked to do the casualty assistance call for them with the XO. And we went to and met them at the mother's apartment. And as you can imagine, when we delivered the news of Stephen's death, the mother and sister were just totally blown away with emotional angst and just sadness. And so on that day, we stayed with them for most of the morning, and it was the first time that I ever cried with a military family member in 27 years of ministry. The scene was just horrible, and as you can imagine. And from there, as the District 7 command chaplain, I helped to the command to orchestrate the funeral, which was a rather large funeral on behalf of this petty officer. And we took his ashes from Station Fort Lauderdale out to sea, where we dispersed them into the ocean. And I remember sitting on the back of that 41 Coast Guard cutter, holding his ashes, just being present with the family. And it was a very surreal, very moving time in this chaplain's ministry, being with a family grieving so much. And she had since then went to Congress and took specific action to assure that the equipment and whatever happens on a Coast Guard cutter for divers is up to speed, and that no accidents like this could happen. As a matter of fact, a bill was put forward called the Stephen Duque bill for Coast Guard safety. So that was another place in my life with the Navy that I had an honor to serve in a very, very wonderful way.
Okay. Referring back to the time periods, one at a time, what rank were you for the first incident? What rank were you in 2005?
2005, gosh, I was a commander.
Okay, so and this one was after that? The
Yeah,
last one?
this one was after the Chalk airline crash. Yeah.
Okay, so you were a commander.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said that's equivalent to a major in the Air Force?
No, that's equivalent to a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force.
Gotcha. Okay, great.
Now I want to thank you for your service and your ministry in doing what you do, because I know it takes a lot of personal sacrifice, and I want to thank you for that.
Well, the only answer I have for that is it's been a pleasure.
Good.
So I want to thank you very much for a great interview, and I also want to thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.